Hey, what's up, everybody? How y'all doing today? Welcome to the I've Been Falsely Accused show, part 19. I'm your host, Cogee, with my co-host, my man, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good. How you doing, Cogee?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for being on with me again today. I know your schedule's heavy, but it ain't never too heavy for this show and the love of our people. Am I right about that?
Right, absolutely.
Jeffrey, I want to say today in our first hour, we got a very interesting case that we're going to deal with right now. We got Miss Johnetta Carr, and as a child, she got strung up, for a long time in the court system on, a false case where somebody was saying that she had something to do with it, and she didn't. She even had a witness saying that she was at home, she was in bed, because the person was right there with her. And we had the thing, where we dealing with a dirty cop who wants to make his own rules as they go along. So how often does this go on, far as when it's a young person, because you went through this, so I know you can relate to it, where the child has been coerced into saying certain things and writing out false statements and signing statements without knowing their rights.
Yeah, well, false confession experts have identified youth as well as people with mental health issues as being particularly vulnerable to coerced false confessions. So, so with that being said, this happens much more frequently than what most of us in society realize. Just to back up a half step, Cogee. Most people don't accept the idea. The average member of the public who's not in tune with wrongful convictions. The idea that someone who's innocent could falsely confess to something that they didn't do, that in itself is counterintuitive. Although we know for sure from all the DNA exonerations that that in fact does happen. So that's another piece to understand for the audience to understand this puzzle.
Okay, I got you plain as day with that one. But Jeffrey, this is what I want to tell you too. With this case right here, and not saying that no other cases are unimportant, but this one is kind of personal to me, and I want to talk to you off the air, today, later on today, about this case that we're going to hear about right now. But I want you to hear all the facts first and all the stuff that we're going to bring to the forefront. And this young lady went to the Innocence Project, and they said that they couldn't help this young lady with this case. But Jeffrey, I really want you to hear this case, because I know, with what you went through as a young man, you're going to hear this case different than anybody else who's just hearing this case and thinking, oh, well, this is another case that came across our desk. Not saying that the Innocence Project don't do a great job. They do a great job. But it's sometimes, I know some cases might slip through the cracks, but this is one that I really want you to listen to, Jeff, okay?
Absolutely, Cogee.
All right.
Absolutely. And then I want to add, Cogee, that's one thing that, distinguishes my foundation from the Innocence Project and from most other organizations in the field. Is they'll only deal with a case if it involves DNA, and that's only around in 5 to 12% of all serious felony cases. So what does a person such as the case we're going to talk about today, where does somebody go that is innocent, that there is a way of proving that innocence, but they have no one to help them out to gather that evidence and to do the boots on the ground work. This is why there's a need for the foundation and other organizations that are willing to go beyond just the DNA.
Right. And that's why I said we definitely got to join forces with those other agencies, because like I said, when you hear this case, I guarantee you, Jeffrey, me and you ain't attorneys, but we done heard enough cases where we can hear facts and we know right from wrong, and we know lack of evidence, and we know what we are hearing. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely, Cogee. And to build further off your point, there's definitely identifiable patterns when it comes to wrongful convictions. It's not too many methods, means, or routes through which somebody is wrongfully convicted that haven't taken place before. So when we hear something about a case and that reminds us of some other case that we've previously dealt with, read about, etc., it kind of jumps out at you.
Right. You're definitely right about that. And that's why I was going to say, if we can find a way to do this through your organization, I'll go ahead and take the lead on it, because I know you in New York, you know what I'm saying? And you just back me up, and I'll make sure that I'll really, get this thing out there. And, man, we need to reverse this situation with this young lady. But what we're going to do, we're going to take a break, everybody, and we'll be right back. This is the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show, Part 19 with me, your host Cogee, and my co-host Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic. I definitely want y'all to stay locked in and tuned in and get ready for Miss Johnetta Carr. When you hear this story, you are not going to believe what you hearing, but this young lady got 4 felonies. 4 felonies for this story that y'all ready to hear. I want y'all to stay locked in and stay tuned in. We'll be right back. Hey, we back, everybody. Welcome back to the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show, part 19. I'm your host, Cogee, and my co-host, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic. We definitely are here for the community, making sure that, hey, we fight for you guys, but most of all, your cases get to be heard. And, we try to do what we can do to follow through with these cases to help you overcome it. So in this first hour, everybody, we have a young lady, Miss Johnetta Carr, calling all the way from Louisville, Kentucky. All the way across the world. She reached out, Cogee, hey, I need some help. You know what I'm saying? This is what I'm going through. And I talked to her on the phone, and when she told me everything she told me, I said, you know what? I got to help this young lady. So I want to say, Miss Johnetta, thank you for being on the show today.
Thank you for having me.
How important is this show today to a person like you who's been ran over, who's been railroad, who's definitely, been made to sign statements that, as far as the age you were, you shouldn't have never had to sign those without a parent looking over them and backing it up. Then on top of that, all jail time you spent, and just all the mental stress of going through, wanting to commit suicide and everything that you went through. How important is this show today for people to listen to it, but for parents to get their pen and paper and understand what's happening to their children when they be in those rooms with those police?
This is very, very important. I can't express how important this is. When I was in that room, I was alone, afraid, confused. I just needed someone. I couldn't even call my parents. I didn't even know, that I would need a lawyer, and I didn't know, anything. It is extremely, extremely important for parents to not allow this to happen, to their children.
That's right. You're definitely right about that. And I want to thank you again this morning when I talked to you on the phone and we was going over the show, and you said some really nice things, man, about me and Jeffrey. And Jeffrey's on the line right now. I want you to say hello to Jeffrey, and then we're going to move into the show. But if you can say it again and let Jeffrey hear it, because sometimes me and Jeffrey have so much on us, and sometimes we feel like we might not be hitting our target. We might not be touching the people that we want to touch. But like you said on the phone, no, but y'all are. I was all the way across the world, and I'm admiring what both of y'all are doing. So you can talk to Jeffrey real quick, and then we're going to move on.
Hey, Jeffrey. Hello?
Hi, how are you?
I'm awesome. It inspires me. The work that you do inspires me. When I want to give up at times and I don't know how I'm going to make it, and I just want to throw in the towel and say, hey, they did this to me, whatever, there's nothing I can do to change it. I just need to accept it. I read stories like yours and see people like Mr. Cogee, and it just inspires me. It gives me hope and a reason to keep fighting. Lets me know that I'm not doing this alone.
Well, I'm glad that my work, inspires you to keep going in your own quest for justice and not to give up. It's very humbling.
Thank you. I definitely thank you too, Johnetta. I think you're a very courageous young lady with what all you fighting against and what you going against out there in Louisville. I already know it's a Commonwealth state, so I know, believe me, I done been on that end of the fence. Trust me, I know what you fighting through, and I know what it takes to get out of something or to just get through something, just to get it over with, where you can do your time and just have a life. You know what I'm saying? I know what it takes. So let's bring everybody up to speed on your case right now, so everybody will know what happened, and then we'll take it from there.
Okay.
Why was you convicted?
I was convicted. I signed an Alfred plea. At the time that I signed it, I thought that my public defender, he told me that I would still be maintaining my innocence, but it turned out definitely not to be that way. When I was 16 years old, a friend of mine was murdered and robbed. 2 months later, the detective came to pick me up at my friend's house. The first word that I remember him telling me after he put me in handcuffs was, "If you just tell the truth, Miss Carr, you'll get to go home." Well, obviously that didn't happen. It was difficult. It was hard. I didn't know what was going on. I had a court date every week for 2 years of my life. I tried to remain hopeful and stay positive during those court dates for them just to get laid over. This was my first time ever being in any trouble as far as dealing with the law, and at that time I believed in the justice system. I didn't think that things like people being falsely accused and convicted of crimes actually happened.
Wow. Now, let me ask you something. When the detective came to your house, did he read you your rights before he put you in the handcuffs, or did he just put you in the handcuffs and walked you to the car?
Not at all. I was put in handcuffs and walked to his car.
Wow. And when y'all got in the car, what was he saying to you in the car on the way down there?
He didn't say anything to me in the car on the way down there. When he put me in handcuffs, he told me to tell the truth and I would get to go home.
And
in the car, he didn't say anything.
And you were 16 years old when this happened?
16 years old.
Were your parents home when he came to get you?
I was at my friend's house.
Oh, okay. So your parents didn't play a role for a long time in this situation until after the interrogation, right?
Yes, sir.
But they was telling you in the interrogation, let everybody know how many hours you were in the interrogation.
13 hours.
At 16 years old.
At 16 years old.
No attorney, nobody in there to hear your side of the story, no nothing.
Nobody.
And you said they were very nice to you in the beginning, and then towards the end, when you didn't have nothing to tell them, they got real vicious with you. Talk about that real quick.
I remember being told that I was a bad person, that he didn't want me on his streets. I didn't deserve to live. I didn't deserve to be in society. I was a prostitute. He called me, I was a whore. I was this, I was that. Excuse my language. I was just any and everything. If you say what I tell you to say, you're going to die. If you don't say what I tell you to say, you're going to die.
Wow. Now, another thing I want to say, when you're a 16-year-old child, because that's what you were, a child in a situation like that, what is your first train of thought when it comes to the police telling you what to say, what to do, how to be, because you want to go home? What is the mindset of a 16-year-old child?
There are people that I thought that I could trust. There are people that when I was growing up, I looked up to, because I felt like they protected our society. I was always taught to trust, respect them. I'm thinking that, they're trying to protect me because that's their job. I was believing.
Wow.
Believing the word that he told me.
Right. And I want to do this real quick. Now we're gonna speed ahead, then we're gonna come back, because this plays a big part in what I want Jeffrey to hear. And this is a key part in the situation, Jeffrey, I want you to hear right now. When you went on the internet a while back, tell us about the 10,000 convictions real quick.
I was on the internet, and I was actually looking for someone to help me, and I read an article that said that this happens to over 10,000 people each year in the United States of America. I didn't have a job at the time, and I knew that I could no longer do nothing about this. Even if I didn't get my name cleared, I knew when I started to realize that the reason why God took me through this is because he knew I wasn't going to stay silent for injustice. And I just knew that I had to help people. I know how that felt. And I just went back to a place where I was in there and I felt like I had no one to fight for me.
That's right. You definitely right about
that. So I
that.
got poster board and Sharpies, colorful poster board and Sharpies, and I started walking with a sign that says over 10,000 falsely convicted each year.
And this is every day you was out. You had that sign around your neck letting people know.
Yep, 4 weeks straight. Yep.
Wow. Now, let me say this. Not only was she determined to do this, to put it out there and wake up the awareness of the community, but you had to go sell plasma. You had to go sell blood just to buy the Sharpies and the poster board because you couldn't get a job because how many felonies do you have?
I have 4.
4 felonies. And how old are you?
I'm 26.
Do you have any children?
No.
Okay. Jeffrey, I want you to take it from here for a second. Now, what have you heard, Jeffrey? You know, when me and you do these shows, Jeffrey, we like attorneys for these people when we hear the stories. Now, if me and you both were attorneys and we on her side and we going against this case, what did you just hear, Jeffrey, that changes the game already?
It's a very long interrogation, and certainly prolonged interrogation is one of the red flags indicating that a confession may be false. Also, threats. I interpret a lot of the statements that she reported the police as making to her as threats. So that part right there is illegal. I think it would be really interesting, Cogee, just to hear what are some of the ways in which her statements that she made didn't match up to what the actual evidence in the case was, because that's also a telltale mark in a false confession case.
Right. You're definitely right about that. So, Johnetta, just what Jeffrey said a minute ago, what part of your statement didn't match up with the co-defendants and people you were going against that drug you in it even deeper?
When I gave my statement, even after all the pressure that was put on me, I never admitted guilt when I was in the interrogation room. The statement that I seen from a co-defendant once I got my discovery, she was not actually talking. You have a detective talking, saying, Johnetta did this, or you did this, and she was just, yes, basically agreeing. Also a statement where he himself, the detective, says when he asked her to go on statement and give a statement of the events that he had told her that occurred, she started crying extremely hysterically and said herself that he, the detective, forced her into saying these things and being in agreement with him because she thought she was going to get to go home.
Okay, and let me jump in for 1 second. Now, Jeffrey, I want to bring something else to light right now, and we seeing this a lot in court cases. Her co-defendant was a white young lady. Johnetta, she's a black young lady. The guy that was in it, he's a mix. He's biracial. Now, the young white young lady, she didn't spend a day in jail during the whole trial. Am I right or wrong, Johnetta?
Right.
And you and the other guy, y'all stayed in jail the whole ride, right?
The whole ride.
Okay. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to take a break real quick because we got to. It's going to be a fast break, and we're going to get right back in. And, Jeffrey, I want you to answer what I just said a minute ago, and you just tell me, from her what you think. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be right back. So everybody stay locked in and stay tuned in. This is the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show, part 19. I'm the host, Cogee, and the co-host, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic. We'll be right back, and you want to hear more. The story gets more deeper. Don't change that channel. We'll be right back. Hey, everybody. We back. Welcome back to the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show, part 19. I'm your host, Cogee, with my co-host, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic. Jeffrey, right before we went to break, I had broke it down to you, and I told you about, how this young lady never did no jail time at all. But Johnetta and the other guy, they was in for the whole ride. But, Jeffrey, first, I want you to ask us some questions where you can feel comfortable with this situation and really know what you're hearing.
Sure. Okay, Cogee. All right, so the first thing is I'm not entirely clear exactly what Johnetta was charged with, how many people. Apparently there's 2 co-defendants, but I want to hear more about what they were charged with specifically and what was the evidence that was used against them. I mean, I'm gathering there's a coerced false confession, but it's not that clear to me whether is there more than one person confessing, or is there some other piece of evidence, or did all the co-defendants go to trial? Did some testify against the others? I mean, the picture's a little bit unclear, so I just need to demystify this a little bit. So, Johnetta, what is it exactly that you were charged with? And if there's co-defendants, can you explain what they were charged with also? I just need to understand the overview of the case.
When I first got arrested, I was I was arrested underneath murder and robbery, tampering with physical evidence. When I signed my Alford plea, I signed a plea to second-degree manslaughter, conspiracy to robbery, burglary, and tampering with physical evidence. The male co-defendant, he pled guilty to second-degree manslaughter, tampering with physical evidence, robbery, and burglary. The other Caucasian female co-defendant, she pled guilty to tampering with physical evidence, and I don't know what else she pled guilty to. I just know that one of them was tampering with physical evidence. She only pled guilty to 2 things and got 10 years.
Right, but I remember at the beginning of the show, Cogee mentioned that you had been convicted of 4 felonies. So you mentioned the manslaughter. I think you said robbery, tampering with evidence. That's 3 charges. What is the 4th?
Conspiracy to burglary, conspiracy to robbery, second-degree manslaughter, and tampering with physical evidence.
Okay, and what is it that they're saying that you did? Just give me a little bit more meat around that. What is it that they're saying that you did?
They're saying that I set up the robbery and that I drove the vehicle to the crime scene and from the crime scene. I've never had a driver's license in my life. I can't drive.
Right. Okay. And you mentioned that you gave a statement. The co-defendants gave statements also.
Yes, sir.
Right. But you mentioned an Alford plea. Just for people that don't know what that means, an Alford plea, that's pleading guilty to a crime, while at the same time, the person who's pleading guilty is in effect saying, "Look, I'm pleading guilty, even though I'm innocent, because if I go to trial, I'm fearful that I may lose and I may wind up with more time than what I'm getting as a result of pleading guilty." That's what an Alford plea is. So, if you took an Alford plea, then that means you never went to trial. Is that correct, or did you go to trial, lose, and get the conviction overturned, and then took an Alford plea? What is it that happened there?
I never went to trial.
Right, I see. And so how much time did you get as a result of this Alford plea?
20 years at 10%.
20 years and 10%. And what were you facing had you lost? Because each state sentencing scheme is different, by the way, just for people that are listening. So how much time would you have received had you went to trial and lost?
25 years for each charge, or else the death penalty.
What's that?
Capital murder. 25 years for each charge, or the death penalty.
Yeah, but all right, okay, I got it. Yeah, although you're saying this is a Kentucky case, so I mean, at 16 years of age, I mean that'll be pretty extreme. I mean, most states have an age eligibility requirement, a cutoff point. You can't be below a certain age to get the death penalty. So, what is that cutoff point in Kentucky? Just so I understand.
I don't know. I know that I was being tried as an adult, so.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. So you did your 20 years, and then the co-defendant pled guilty also, and he got how much time?
25 years.
Okay, and the other co-defendant got how much
10.
time?
Shock probation.
Wow.
Well, did she plead first and then give evidence against you two? Because I mean, for a dramatic sentencing disparity like that, I mean that would be pretty unusual unless you agreed to testify against you two initially. Is that what happened?
She did plead guilty first. My public defender did tell me that she planned on testifying against us if we were took it to trial. She's the one that made the false confession that got us all arrested. But when I started,
after that, you wound up making a statement too after the 13 hours, right?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
at the end of your 13-hour interrogation, that's what you wound up making a statement yourself, right?
Right, but I never admitted guilt during that statement.
Yeah, but that's in the Alford plea. But see, when you say that you made a statement, and then you're also saying that at the same time that you did that guilt, I mean, that doesn't make sense. I mean, if you didn't make statements that incriminated yourself, then the issue of how long you were interrogated is irrelevant because the whatever you said didn't damage you. On the other hand, if you said something that incriminated you, then the length of interrogation would be relevant. So, did you make statements against yourself, or you didn't?
I didn't.
You did not. But
let me do this real quick. Let me do this real quick, Jeff, and then I want to come right back to you, Jeffrey. Johnetta, tell Jeffrey the big point of your co-defendant's situation with her family members and what they are in that city. Give Jeffrey the background and all the support and the firepower she had, to keep her safe and to get through this trial.
Her grandfather used to be the chief of prosecutors.
And what about her dad?
Her dad is very wealthy. I don't know exactly what he does, but I know that her grandfather used to be the chief of prosecutors for Louisville Metro.
You see what I'm saying, Jeff?
I understand I understand the power dynamics, and that's an important point too, Coach. I mean, it's not really a point that you and I have really focused on before, but I'm glad that having this guest on gives us that opportunity. Cases don't happen in a vacuum. There's always a backstory to something, and there's usually political dynamics involved one way or another, even if the political dynamic is that the case doesn't really have much of a political dynamic. So let me say this now. Now I understand now what you're asking me, Coach. I understand a little bit more of the lay of the land of this case.
Okay.
So just to give a caveat or a disclaimer first. We don't give legal advice. We do give general advice.
Right.
When we give legal advice, we both have to have a law degree. But instead, I'm just giving general advice based on my life experience, based off my master's degree in criminal justice, and based off of my knowledge of the field in general. So if I was fighting this case, what I would do is I would try to document each way. I would look at the statements that the co-defendants made, and I would look at each way the statements didn't match up with the other known evidence. That would be one part of it. I would have an investigator speak with the co-defendant. Sometimes with the passage of time, people have a change of heart. Their conscience bothers them, so they might be willing to recant. Let me take this statement back. And frequently recantations involve the person not only taking their story back, but explaining, how they lied. This is the way it's verifiable. This is the reason why I lied. So I would look at that. I would look at the police reports. I would see if there was any similar crimes in nearby areas. Are there any alternative suspects that were mentioned in the police reports? And I would use those things as my initial starting point.
Okay. Now, with what you said, Jeffrey, now I'm coming right back to you, Jeffrey. I just want to throw this in real quick because you hit something on the nose, what you said a minute ago. Now, Johnetta, now we're going to finish dropping the other part of the situation to this story. Tell Jeffrey about the cop that made you, forced you into everything and was just bulldogging you through the whole trial. Tell Jeffrey why he's no longer on the force and what he was doing to get kicked off the force.
He was using LMPD surveillance cameras to stop his ex-wife and bringing friends of hers in for long hours of interrogation to try to get them to say where she was at. Physically abusive to her. Mm-hmm.
And that he had made a lot of other cases, built a lot of other cases by having people to do false statements, right?
Yes, sir, false statements.
And Jeffrey, this has been proven because he's fired. He's been off the force for a long time.
Yeah, so that right there, that's a pretty important piece of evidence that would help you.
That's right.
That will not carry the day, in my opinion, in and of itself, but it is a really solid starting point. You would need to pair it with some of the other things, like I said. I mean, if the co-defendant who incriminated you, if she said that the same tactics he adopted in other cases he did to her specifically, like if he coerced her into a statement, then you got a couple of things to work with. Cogee, there was a report not too long ago that a judge, I forgot the name of the judge, it escapes me, but he wrote an article about plea bargaining, and he said that he believed that the wrongful conviction rate as a result of plea bargains was at 8%. A lot of innocent people do plead guilty for a variety of factors, including fear, damage control. So, I mean, that similarity, that similar pattern from what Johnetta is saying, seems to be present here. So, for everyone who's listening, not only do innocent people sometimes falsely confess, but then they also plead guilty as well.
That's right. You're definitely right about that. But let me ask you something, Jeff. Okay, we're going to have to take a break, but it's what we're going to do. I'm going to ask you the question, Jeffrey. Don't answer it till we come right back. In the case of this young lady, Johnetta, and how old she was when she went through all this, I mean, can't you see why she's railroaded right now? I mean, with all evidence showing, and can't you see why? I mean, her life is devastated right now. 4 felonies at 26 years old. You know what I'm saying? So we come right back. Jeffrey's going to answer it. It's going to be a quick break, and we're going to be right back. You're listening to the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show. I'm the host, Cogee, with my co-host, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic. We'll be right back. Hey, we back, everybody. Welcome back to the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show. I'm your host, Cogee, with my main man, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic, my co-host. Jeffrey, I asked you a question right before we went to break. Can you see all signs of railroad with this situation, though, even though she was 16 years old? Just your opinion. Your opinion.
Yeah. Just my opinion. The presence of the police officer who got fired, who was known for coercing false statements. So that right there places an area. That places an aura of suspicion around the case. Really, I think in terms of trying to convince anybody of someone's innocence. You really would need to say something more than that. I mean, that's enough to draw suspicion on the case. Certainly, it should be looked into further. But you would need something more. I think that being interrogated for 13 hours at 16 years of age, that's outrageous. That being said, that didn't result in any false confession. So that's kind of like ancillary. So I really think that Johnetta needs to work the case a little bit more. The angles that I spoke about. Normally, when you're trying to get assistance from any agency, you have to set down some attention getters real fast within your first 3 to 4 sentences max.
I agree.
And you have to say something to that you have to give people something objective to hang their hat on, but then to be confident to say, yeah, I think that you are. You're innocent. You're not quite there yet.
That's right.
You need to do a little bit more. But there is this case is a little suspicious. I think it deserves further look because of the presence of the police officer. But listen, one last thing, and then I'll pass the ball back to Cogee here because we play team ball, and I can't hog it. Sports analogy I'm going here. Sometimes, Sometimes because he's the point guard, and I'm the shooting guard, and I can only pull up when he hits me with a chest-high pass. I can just do a catch and shoot. When I bringing the ball up and down the court and running the plays, that's not my role. But that police officer, though, who was fired, maybe it might sound crazy, but there's a possibility that since he's been fired already, it might be worth having somebody speak with him. Maybe he might be willing to speak about what cases that he did in which he coerced false statements out of people. You never know. He might be willing to speak. It's worth a shot.
That's right. You're definitely right about that. Now, Jeffrey, let me go back to this 1 minute because I really want parents to hear this and not take this for granted. How can a 16-year-old child beat the police in an interrogation room for 13 hours? There's no way.
Cogee, look, I would comment, except that you answered your own question. But you asked the question not so much of an answer of that as to make the larger point. We're raised, most of us, Cogee, myself included. I'm not exempt. The police officers are friends. They're there to protect us. They wouldn't do anything dishonest or illegal. Right. And I think that that's true in some instances, and I think it's not true in an awful lot of other instances. I don't think that being a police officer means you're automatically a good person, just like it doesn't make you a bad person. I think it's, there's both. That being said, it's important that all parents listening teach their kid what to do if the police want to speak with you. You're obligated to give your name. You're obligated to say where you live, and the third thing you're supposed to say is, "I want a lawyer." If you have a lot of the innocence of suspects, it actually works against them because, we believe that since we're innocent and don't know anything about the crime, what could possibly happen as a result of talking to the police? But actually, in fact, quite a lot bad could happen as a result of you speaking to the police without having a lawyer present. And if anyone doubts that, all they need to do is to know my story, which I was wrongfully convicted of a murder and rape, based in large part, though not solely, on a coerced false confession. I thought it was safe to speak to the police without an attorney. The important thing that the attorney will add is that they will level the playing field. The police won't be able to coerce you. They won't be able to make threats or false promises or scare or intimidate or go on this long interrogation marathon, which is often accompanied by a food deprivation and good cop, bad cop, all these psychological games which they're taught to carry out by means of the read technique. They won't be able to do that with a lawyer present.
That's right. You're definitely right about that. But we down to a little under 2 minutes. But I just want to say to Johnetta, I want you to stay on the line with me and Jeffrey. You ain't got to go nowhere, right?
No, I don't.
Okay, I want you to stay on with us and cross over into the second hour with me and Jeffrey, while we wait on our next guest, that's supposed to be coming on, because there's still a lot I want to ask Jeffrey. And this is good that I get to come at Jeffrey and Jeffrey get to, really drop his knowledge, because Jeffrey's on the playing field and he's on the battlefield as well with a lot of these exonerees. And Jeffrey's doing a great job bringing some of them home, and he's doing a great job still fighting for some of them to come home. So, I just want to tell everybody, this is a really serious show that y'all hearing right now. Every time we do the I've Been Falsely Accused show, we hear so many different cases that, our heart goes out for a lot of people. But the thing about it is, Jeffrey's right. You got to have your information on point. And when you're going to deal with other people, once you've been turned down, you got to have an ear catcher. Because when I talked to Johnetta, it was definitely an ear catcher for me when she said certain things. So that's how I know Jeffrey is right on the mark with what he's saying. So I want y'all to stay locked in and stay tuned in. And we'll be right back for the second hour of the I've Been Falsely Accused radio show with me, your host, and my co-host, Mr. Jeffrey Deskovic. Like I said, we do this out of love. We're not getting paid thousands of dollars to do this. We're doing this on the love of the community, for the safety for the community, and we want to make sure people are very intelligent when dealing with the police and dealing with the laws, but knowing the laws and going by the laws. We'll be right back. Stay locked in.